Chapter 9. Echoes of Resilience. After finishing his lunch and paying with his Midas card, Nick left Covent Garden behind, eager to explore more of what London had to offer. Energised by curiosity and the promise of discovery, he headed south, weaving through the meandering streets that led towards the Strand. It wasn't long before the familiar charm of market stalls gave way to the relentless rhythm of the city. Horns blaring, crowds flowing like a river of restless energy, and neon advertisements flashing from every direction. Having spent most of his life in the relatively quiet town of Biggleswade, Nick found the scale of it all disorienting. The sheer volume of noise, the mass of people brushing past him on the pavement, and the unending surge of vehicles made him feel as if he were caught in the eye of a living machine, one far bigger than he'd ever imagined. Then came a voice, familiar, composed, and ever-present. "Sir, your stress levels have increased. Are you feeling well?" Apollo's calm, modulated tone reverberated softly in his earpiece. "I'm okay," Nick replied, his voice tinged with unease. "Just not used to this much activity. It's overwhelming." Apollo responded with the faintest trace of empathy in his synthetic cadence. "Understandable. London is unlike anywhere else. It never truly sleeps. It's a city layered with history, culture, and a stubborn pulse of life. Many of its oldest sites narrowly escaped destruction during the Grand War and the subsequent cultural purge attempted by the tyrant behind the failed coup against the imperial family." Nick slowed his pace, weaving between slower pedestrians as he absorbed Apollo's words. That purge, who was behind it? What exactly happened? A brief pause followed, as if even the AI had to tread carefully. "His name has been removed from all official records," Apollo explained. "The reigning emperor ordered that no monument, archive, or digital trace be allowed to preserve his legacy. The goal was clear: to prevent others from idolizing or reviving his extremist ideologies." Nick exhaled deeply, his breath catching in his throat as he looked around. Grand facades of Victorian architecture loomed over sleek, mirrored buildings. Above them, drones hummed quietly like mechanical bees. Delivering parcels or surveying the crowds, it was a city constantly rebuilding itself. Layer upon layer of survival. "Hard to believe," Nick murmured, almost to himself, "that this place has faced so much and still stands." "Indeed," Apollo agreed. "London is not just a capital. It's a symbol of endurance, of defiance. Every cracked pavement, every soot-stained brick has a story. The city lives on, even after fire, war, and tyranny." Nick's gaze lingered on the passing faces. Young couples hand in hand, old war veterans sitting quietly with medals pinned to their coats, business people rushing to appointments, street performers captivating small crowds. Every one of them carried a piece of the city's collective memory, even if they didn't know it. Eventually, Nick arrived at the serene oasis of Victoria Embankment Gardens, a hidden gem nestled in the heart of central London, beside the meandering River Thames. The contrast from the city's frenetic pace was immediate and striking. Here, in this tranquil pocket of greenery, time seemed to slow. As he wandered along the gently curving pathways, the noise of London faded into a distant hum. Towering trees swayed in the soft breeze, their leaves rustling like a chorus of whispered memories. The gardens themselves were a vibrant patchwork of colour, lavender, crimson, and gold blooming in harmonious profusion. The air was tinged with floral sweetness, and for the first time all day, Nick truly breathed. Amidst the idyllic scene stood a marble memorial, honouring the soldiers who had perished in the Grand War. Its solemn presence anchored the park in history, a quiet reminder of the sacrifices woven into the soil beneath his feet. Nearby, fountains sparkled in the sunlight, their gentle cascades forming a tranquil rhythm that soothed the spirit. Nick paused to take it all in. Here, where nature and remembrance converged, his burdens felt momentarily lighter. Further along, his attention was drawn to a quaint cybercafe, discreetly nestled within a leafy alcove. Modernity blended effortlessly with the natural surroundings. People sipped espresso beneath rustling branches, their conversations mingling with the soft click of keyboards and the chirp of digital assistants. This seamless blend of the old and the new typified London's soul, ever evolving, yet rooted in something enduring. He soon found a secluded bench beneath a sprawling oak, its branches arching protectively overhead. Settling in, he gazed out at the Thames. The river glinted under the afternoon sun, and along its surface, a procession of sleek, futuristic boats glided with elegant precision. They looked as if they had sailed straight out of a science fiction novel. With streamlined aerodynamic hulls crafted from lightweight, resilient materials, they sliced through the water effortlessly, propelled by whisper-quiet systems that left barely a ripple. Their minimalist exteriors gleamed under the sunlight, clean, functional, yet undeniably beautiful. Panoramic windows stretched across many of the vessels, offering uninterrupted views of the London skyline. Through them, Nick could make out passengers reclining in plush, ergonomic seats, their expressions a blend of calm and wonder. Some pointed excitedly at iconic landmarks. Others simply watched the water, content to drift through the city in serene detachment. Within these river cruises, technology and comfort coalesced. Immersive entertainment systems offered everything from VR-guided tours of historical sites to real-time interactive city maps. Sustainability was built in. Solar panels shimmered subtly on the roofs, and electric motors ensured zero emissions, marrying luxury with conscience. As Nick observed, one boat passed particularly close to shore. A group of children waved with unrestrained joy, their laughter rising above the gentle lapping of the water. Nearby, a couple sat entwined, speaking in hushed tones as they took in the view. Further along, smartly dressed professionals tapped away on glass tablets, momentarily liberated from boardrooms and schedules, enjoying a fleeting pause in the flow of life. It was a vision of harmony, people from different walks of life sharing a rare moment of peace on the river. And for Nick, watching from the shaded bench beneath the oak, it was more than a scenic diversion. It was a reminder. Amidst chaos, stillness could be found. Among the scars of history, life continued. Not just surviving, but evolving. However, Nick's moment of serenity was abruptly shattered by raised voices echoing from a nearby pathway. Alert, he turned his gaze towards the disturbance and spotted a tense confrontation unfolding near one of the flower beds. 3 men, rough-looking, hostile, were surrounding a woman and 2 children. As Nick narrowed his eyes for a closer look, recognition struck him like a jolt of electricity. It was Anne Shang, her mother May, and her stepbrother James Hunter, the same trio from the train to London. Quickly, Nick slipped behind the wide trunk of a sycamore tree, crouching low to stay hidden. He needed to assess the situation before acting. "Didn't you hear what I said?" one of the men snarled, his voice thick with malice. "People from UAA countries aren't welcome here." Another stepped forward, bitterness carved deep into his expression. "We'll never forgive your kind for abandoning us during the Grand War. And now our empire's supposed to accept help from the likes of you?" "He's not my emperor," the third added, sneering. Contempt dripped from every syllable. Despite the mounting hostility, May stepped forward with remarkable composure. Her voice, though soft, carried strength and civility. "Gentlemen," she said, "I understand that you may harbour resentment. But hatred aimed at those uninvolved, people who've only ever lived peacefully among you, solves nothing. My family and I are British citizens. Your fight is with ghosts of the past, not with your own people." The men hesitated, her words slicing through the air like a scalpel. But one of them clenched his fists and surged forward, his face twisted in rage. "You're not citizens," he spat. "You're parasites, freeloaders." He raised his hand, the intent clear in his motion. He meant to strike her. He never got the chance. James launched himself forward, intercepting the man mid-swing. His hand clamped around the attacker's wrist like iron, halting the strike. With a fierce twist and a shove, he drove the man backwards and down to the ground, where he landed with a heavy thud. James stood over him, eyes blazing. "You clearly missed the lesson that it's impolite to hit women," he said coldly. "So let me offer you a refresher." He glanced at Anne, who had stepped protectively in front of her mother. Her expression was fierce, her fists clenched. The fire in her eyes mirrored her brother's defiance. "Absolutely, James," Anne replied coolly, her eyes narrowing like a predator sizing up its prey. The sight of someone daring to threaten her mother had ignited a fire within her that could not be extinguished. With fluid grace, she dropped into a poised martial arts stance, her muscles coiled and ready for action. She turned briefly towards May, locking eyes with her mother, who offered a silent, steady nod of approval. That wordless gesture steeled Anne's resolve. The atmosphere crackled with tension. The surrounding air felt thick, charged by the imminent clash. James and Anne stood shoulder to shoulder, a formidable front of discipline and righteous fury. "So," James said, his voice low and steady, "which one of you's brave enough to throw the first punch?" The three men exchanged uncertain glances, the earlier fire in their eyes now dimmed by the intimidating confidence radiating from the siblings. Despite their bluster, their hands trembled as they hesitantly raised their fists and lunged forward. James moved first, calm, precise, efficient. He caught the closest thug's wrist mid-swing, yanked it sideways, and delivered a sharp jab straight to the bridge of his nose. The sickening crack of cartilage echoed across the garden. Before the man could even groan, James swept his leg and dropped him, pinning him to the ground in a maneuver eerily reminiscent of a police restraint. Meanwhile, Anne embraced the fluid discipline of Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's legacy of motion and mastery. She didn't waste energy on brash offense. Instead, she watched, waited, reacted. One of the men lunged with a clumsy punch. Predictable. Anne deflected it with an elegant parry, pivoted on her heel, and landed a punishing elbow into his side. He staggered. She followed with a lightning-quick roundhouse kick to his temple that sent him crashing to the grass. "Is that seriously the best you've got?" Anne called out, a teasing smirk curling her lips. She sidestepped another desperate swing from the third man, her ponytail whipping behind her like a battle flag. "Come on, try harder." Her attacker charged again, but she slipped beneath his reach and struck low with a sweeping leg kick, knocking him clean off his feet. He hit the ground with a thud, groaning. However, the third man, red-faced and out of options, suddenly yanked an unregistered gun from behind his waistband. The weapon trembled in his grip as he levelled it at James, Anne, and May. Shock rippled through the group. What kind of coward brings a firearm to a fistfight? "I think you're the ones who need to say sorry," he growled, his voice tight with desperation. His eyes burned with hatred, but the tremor in his hand betrayed his fear. Anne and James stood their ground, feet planted firmly, refusing to yield. But from behind the shelter of a tree, Nick watched with wide eyes, his heart hammering in his chest. The barrel of the gun triggered something deep and primal. In an instant, he was no longer in the park. He was back in that alleyway, his parents bleeding out in front of him, their lives stolen in a flash of gunfire. The memory clawed at him raw and relentless. He clenched his jaw. He wouldn't let that happen again. Not to anyone. Nick's gaze darted to the ground and found it, a hefty rock, jagged and solid. Instinct overtook thought. He snatched it up and hurled it with all the strength in his body. Crack. The stone struck the gunman square in the right eye. He shrieked in agony, stumbling back, the weapon veering wildly. "Now!" James shouted, seizing the moment. He lunged forward, disarming the thug with practiced ease. The gun clattered to the ground and skidded across the path. Without hesitation, Anne sprinted to the weapon, snatched it up, and bolted towards the river. Her heart pounded as she reached the embankment, and without a second thought, hurled the gun into the Thames. It vanished beneath the rippling current. Gone. Back at the scene, James had the attacker in a hold, his arm locked around the man's throat. "Don't worry, your friend's just sleeping it off," he said, coolly, feeling the man go limp in his grasp. "He should wake up in about an hour. Might want to rethink his life choices when he does." The two remaining thugs stood frozen, their bravado drained, faces pale with disbelief. One of them, jaw clenched and eyes blazing, spat at James's feet. "You think this is over? You, your sister, and that whore will pay for this," he hissed, his voice laced with venom, but the shake in his words betrayed how deeply the tide had turned against him. May stepped forward, regal and unflinching. "You have only yourselves to blame for what happened today," she said, her tone sharp as tempered steel. "If you'd just walked away, you could have kept your dignity. But don't waste your breath on apologies. People like you never mean them." May's gaze shifted towards the tree where Nick still lingered, almost invisible amidst the gathering shadows. "Whoever's behind the tree, come out," she called, her voice calm but commanding. Nick hesitated, weighing the moment, then stepped out from behind the trunk. He moved slowly, hands open, non-threatening. Recognition flickered across May's face as she studied him. "You look familiar," she said slowly. "Have we met?" "I figured you'd forget me," Nick replied with a soft chuckle, the corners of his mouth twitching into a smile. "We met on the train to London. I gave up my seat so you could sit together." "I knew I'd seen him before," Anne exclaimed, eyes lighting up. "Rick, wasn't it?" "Close," Nick laughed. "Name's Nick Adams." May's eyes lingered on him, warmth and gratitude softening her features. "Well, Nick Adams, thank you for what you did. For us." Nick shrugged modestly. "I couldn't just stand by. I've already watched people I care about die today. I wasn't going to let that happen again." A beat of silence passed, the emotional weight of his words hanging gently in the air. "We should get moving," Nick said, tone shifting to one of urgency. "Police will be here any second, and trust me, you don't want to be stuck explaining all this for hours." James gave a sharp nod. No argument from me. He turned and jogged over to the bench where their luggage waited, relics of a journey interrupted. Anne and May followed, moving swiftly but with care, the fading adrenaline beginning to give way to fatigue. As they packed, May stole one final glance at the men sprawled across the grass, groaning and humiliated. There was no triumph in her expression, only a quiet hope. "Let's just pray they learn something from this," she murmured. Anne, throwing a wary glance in the direction of the approaching sirens, tugged at her mother's arm. "We really need to go. The last thing we need is more trouble." With suitcases in tow, the group slipped away, quickening their pace. The sirens grew louder behind them, slicing through the night air like a warning bell.